Hello, folks. So this is my Stamina Nightblade build. I like to call it the Bloody Blade because there is a lot of bleed abilities and it is based around bleed damage. So we are just going to go straight into the build. There's going to be a quick section where I just go over the skills, champion points, and the general layout of the build, and then I will go deeper into it after that. So, starting out, the gear that you're going to be running: Maelstrom Great Sword with a weapon damage enchant, 2 daggers with advanced Keating, Nearneth Guys. You could swap this out for Stone Fist. You get pretty good damage off that. I tend to hit higher with Nearneth, but that's up to the individual player and what works best for them. Pillar of Nirn is a must-have on any bleed build. It gives you a lot of bleed damage. And then again, more advancing Yokita. Your skills: on your back bar, you are going to run Stampede, Carve, Twisting Path, and Leeching Strikes. You're going to keep Camouflage Hunter here, and you are going to have whatever your ulti of choice is on your back bar. I tend to run Barrier because you can never have too much of a barrier. Your front bar is going to have Incapacitating Strike. This is for sustain. Rendering Slash is another bleed. Rapid Strikes. Barb Trap, another bleed and gives us minor force. And Killer's Blade is your execute. Champion points are as follows. For the Warfare Tree: Wrathful Strikes. With the new update, it will be more powerful than Backstabber in most cases. You also want Thaumaturge, Master at Arms, and Deadly Aim. And that is the general layout of the build itself. I'm now going to get a little bit more into the nuts and bolts of the build, as it were. So, if you're leaving your light attacks in, again, weapon damage is important because proccing that with the infused trait is going to help you build your weapon damage, and 5 seconds is a long time. Advancing Yokita is a stacking set, and keeping those stacks up is really very important. I am going to tell you that you will lose your stacks sometimes because it's on the back bar. If you do, that's okay, just rebuild them. Then you've got, our Mundus that we are running also is going to be the Thief. Lavafoot Soup and Saltries is our parse food and the food in general on this build, because like all my other builds, when I need something else, I use Gaze of Sithis. This character actually has a lot of crit for a stand build, but that's because it is on a Nightblade. Now, Pillar of Nirn. This is really nice because you're going to get a lot of bleed damage, and I mean a lot of bleed damage. This, you're already buffing your AoEs, but this adds an extra AoE attack, and you get some weapon and spell damage off of it, which is really nice to have. I happen to pick up gold rings and advancing Yokita. If you don't have advancing Yokita, Briarheart is your next best choice for weapons and jewels. You can run Reliquin on the body, but given that this is a bleed build, I feel that Pillar of Nirn fits best. You could also run Drozakar for Moongrave Fane, but again, I lean towards Pillar of Nirn. Now, with all of that being said, the weapon pots we use weapon pots on this build because it's easier to run weapon pots than try to keep constant skills up, and you are going to need to have that stamina regen. It is very important. You could run tri-stats, but you're going to be losing out on some damage with Major Brutality, because with the skills that we have slotted, which I'm about to go through now, On your back bar, there is not a skill that gives you major brutality and major sorcery on this build. And there's a reason for that. So your rotation is going to start off with a light attack and then stampede, which gives us a bleed because of the Maelstrom Perfected Greatsword. Causes enemies to bleed for 10,000 damage over 7 seconds. That is a really strong bleed. So it's going to be Stampede, Carve, which will stack. In the rotation, you're going to see me stack it twice. This is just so that way I don't have to worry about it ever running out. And you can stack it up to 30 seconds. And it gives you a nice little damage shield that you can spam if you're in a tight spot. And then after that, you have Twisting Path, which is a really strong damage AoE, which the best part about it is that it's a Magicka skill on a stam build, so you're not burning through any stam, and it gives you a little bit extra stam. Leeching Strikes, you're going to want to keep this up whenever it drops, because this is going to be a major part of your sustain. The weapon pots alone on this build is not enough to sustain it, so Leeching Strikes is a major part of your sustain. Again, this ulti is a flex spot. I run Barrier simply because if you're in a dungeon or a trial and you need that extra damage resist, Barrier, throwing up that giant shield, does wonders. On our main bar, we are going to be running Rendering Slashes next. So your rotation is 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you should get through another rotation before you have to reproc that. And then 5 with Lingering Slashes, just another good solid bleed ability. Then you're going to throw down your Barbed Trap for 2 reasons. One, it is a massive bleed damage. Like, it does a lot of bleed damage. And then on top of that, you're going to be getting Minor Force, which increases your crit damage by 10%, which is the reason most people run Barbed Trap. But on this build, it is unique in that it does play into the bleeding your target twice. Incapacitating Strike is the ulti that we are running on the Nightblade, because while slotted, you gain Reeve, which restores 100 magic and stam when you deal damage with a light or heavy attack on an enemy with a negative active effect on them. With the number of negative effects we're going to be hitting this guy with, and when you're in a dungeon or trial, it really does a lot for sustain, especially when you're doing the proper light attack weaving. Our spammable is going to be Rapid Strikes. This is because you're going to have about, I don't know, 4 seconds or so of downtime if you get the rotation down really good. And you need something to do damage to fill that gap. No, it's not a bleed ability, but it is a stam, and it is a pretty good channel, and it does some significant damage, particularly with the final hit dealing 300% more. And then when the target drops below 25%, you're going to drop any of these for Killer's Blade. And again, we are running Camouflage Hunter on both bars, not just because of the Fighters Guild, not just because of the major savagery and prophecy it grants us, but because it grants us Smite of Berserk for 5 seconds after dealing crit damage from an enemy's flank. It's a small increase, but that does help a lot. Now for champion points. Also, on the daggers, you have a flame enchant and a poison enchant. Now, let's go in here. So, you have your main ones here, and you get whatever you can out of these. You want to run Wrathful Strikes for 2 different reasons. One, Backstabber is amazing, it's awesome, and it's also getting nerfed after the next update, which is the new DLC that drops this June. June 27th, I believe, is the exact date. Wrathful Strikes will also help you anywhere. It's also getting a buff after the next update. These aren't going to change even after the update. They're just all going to get dropped down from 10% to 6%. But this is going to buff your bleed damage. It's going to buff barb trap. It's going to buff your dual wield stabs. It's going to buff the rendering slashes. And it is going to buff the Maelstrom Greatsword bleed. This buffs pretty much all of our damage on this, except for the AoE damage. And this is also buffing your light and heavy attacks. And then this is the key here. This one you have to have because this is for dots. Damage over time. Bleed damage is a dot. Biting Aura does nothing for this build. Let's go in here. If you can, get both sides of this tree, because this is buffing your daggers by adding elemental status effects, and grants 100 weapon and spell damage to martial status, affects physical poison, bleed, and physical poison, disease, and bleed damage. Again, more bleed damage. Flawless Ritual. This is good because you do have flame on one of your daggers, which it does help. It's odd to have two different daggers and not run just both poison. You can if you wish, but I have found that I get slightly better results with one flame, one poison. Now, one thing of note, if you look at this, the penetration's 6,000. On the front bar, on the back bar, the penetration is at 5,000. Now, one of the nice things about Nightblades is that you get some penetration from the passives. But also, Near-Neth Skies and Near-Neth Epulas, head and shoulders are light. The reason they are light is because of this, the light armor passives, specifically concentration. Increase your physical and spell penetration by 939 for a total of 1878. That's a lot of pen. You also get some nice bonuses when it comes to crit rating. The rest of these are not absolutely necessary. I have them because I have the skill points for them. Medium armor, you want all of it. Heavy armor, useless, don't worry about it. The former meta of running the Undaunted command, or not Undaunted command, but the Undaunted metal is no longer useful. You will lose DPS if you are running one heavy, one light, one medium. It seems like you're getting extra resources, which you are, but those extra resources are not compensating for the amount of damage that you're getting from having 5 medium to light. One other thing to note, if you just have these in purple, you're good. You want infused on your jewelry because you're having a weapon damage glyph. The reason that you want infused instead of bloodthirsty, as I've explained in other videos, is that right now infused does more damage throughout the course of a fight versus bloodthirsty, whose damage ranks up. Yes, your execute is insane if you run all bloodthirsty, but you lose so much damage at the beginning of the fight, not just target dummies but anything else, that what ends up happening is that you end up with less DPS. Now we're talking about a difference of like probably 3-4k, so not that significant, but if you're looking at min-maxing, there is a difference there. Now, this character only has 19k health, so I'm also on a Khajiit. Dark Elf is going to hit a little bit higher. You're also going to have a little bit more of a sustain issue, so Dark Elf or Khajiit, that is up to you on which one you want to run. I have considered swapping this guy over to Dark Elf myself. I just haven't done it yet. Now, when it comes to You also want your, obviously all attributes go into one stat. That still counts. Our crit damage is high because we're on a nightblade already. Thief, Mundus, as already stated. So, let's go over there and let's show you how this rotation actually works. So, when fighting, pop your potion or potion first, leeching strikes, turn around. This is for the beginning. Throw down barb trap, and here I double proc that. And as you can see, we have some time left before we have to reapply those dots. Now we go back in, reapply those dots. And as you can see, we didn't have to reapply leeching strikes that time. We're going to pop that next time we go around. And this really is a static rotation. You can just keep doing the same thing all the way down to about 25%. At 25%, you're going to see it change over. If you have to choose between rendering slashes and barb trap as to which one to activate first, always go for barb trap. Okay, we overburned. We're at 25%. Swap those out. At 15%, we are going to drop the magic AoE. Alright, 5%. Just hit that. I screwed up that rotation, but we're just going to burn our way out of it now. I don't think I screwed it up too badly. I didn't. So, 83k, there you go. Again, this is not a pure meta build. if you swap out some sets and you get the rotation perfect, that was not a perfect rotation by any means. You don't have to have it 100% perfect rotation. And keep in mind that rotation varies, so the more you do it, the better you get at it, the higher your damage will go. And in general, one final note to make: if you don't want to run Pillar of Nirn, Drozakar is a good offset as stated, and if you're just getting it going, grab some Briarheart, throw it on your weapons and jewels, and grab Hunting's Rage as a crafted set, and you should still hit pretty well with it. With this build, it's all about the bleed damage, champion points, and the rotation. But I appreciate you watching. Hope you have a great day, and this has been my Bloody Blade.